You are listening to Radio Ramadan 365 podcasts.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Radio Ramadan 87.7 FM program Reflections with your host Zubair Akram and my guest Shaykh Ruzwan. Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Shaykh, so in this session, we are going to recap the previous sessions of almost kind of like the fascination of language.
Mhm.
How eloquent, how the depth of qaida and tadlil and the connection between these two terms are understood. And then we're going to go on to why and the how of these ayahs.
Mhm.
Qaida. In the previous session, qaida, and although it's not related to this tafsir, qaida kunna adim
Mhm.
was one example that we took. And then there's qaida. You also mentioned there was qaida used twice in one of the surahs, and there is a plot within the plot.
Mhm.
There's a plot within the plot.
إنهم يكيدون كيدا وأكيد كيدا. Yeah.
فمهل ये कौन सी सूरत है إنهم أكيدون كيدا وأكيد كيدا
فمهل الكافرين أمهلهم رويدا.
رويدا Surah Tariq, I think.
Mm.
So yeah, so there is a plot, and what comes to mind is it not an Arab culture thing that nothing is straightforward? Nothing. It's not as transparent, as straight as other cultures.
Mhm.
There are twists in the language. There is twist in the meanings. The way you sit, way you talk, your body language can have several meanings, as opposed to some other cultures. And this qaida is kind of most relevant to the Arabs.
That's a question, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a question.
Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So your question essentially is Arab culture unique or has it?
Metaphoric. It's like यानी इस्तिआराती है, इस्तिआरे ज़्यादा हैं इसमें.
Okay, that's different. Okay, that's a different question. Because if you think it's an exceptional culture, in terms of, concepts, ideas like plots and twists and hidden meaning, I wouldn't say in terms of culture and norms and customs, it has something over and above other cultures. But what it does have is the richness of its language, because you look at indexes that plot the most difficult languages to learn. And even that idea of how difficult a language is to learn, it has to be in relation to the language you're learning from. So if I say to you, and you're fluent in Urdu, what's the most difficult language for you? It'll be different from if I said to somebody who just speaks English, what's the most difficult language for them to learn would be different. So there's no absolute way of determining what the most difficult language to learn is. But generally, Arabic comes in the top 2 or 3 across different languages, whether it's Romanic languages, whether it's languages that are to do the Aryan language, Indo-European, Saxon, whatever it is. It always comes up as being amongst the most difficult. But difficulty in and of itself is not important. What's important is richness. And the richness of the Arabic language is actually captured in its lexicon and dictionary, and the works that are written to capture the language itself. So if you look at like the book Taj al-Urus by Imam al-Zabidi, he commented on Ihya al-Madin, but he also wrote one of the most magnanimous works in Arabic history, in literature, in world history actually, which is a lexicon dictionary on the Arabic language, a commentary on another book on another dictionary, in which he basically, comments on the complexity of the language, the words, the origins, and he actually then even filters them through the most authentic positions on what the word means. So if we talk about kaid, for example, he'll go through the history of it, the origin of the word itself, the root, what the associations of that are in desert culture and how it manifests, the first use of it, for example. So in the Oxford English Dictionary, you have etymological dictionary, you have the old meanings, or the oldest meaning of a word and use of a word logged. So if you had something like steward, it will list who used it first, why it was used, and then how it developed. But you're talking about going back probably 6 centuries maximum, 6, 7 centuries, 4 centuries probably, maybe 3 centuries, maybe 2 centuries. That's it. With Arabic, you're talking about 1400 years, 1500 years, 1600 years. And it's also logged in terms of its strength and power. And so the Arabic language, from its richness, is the richest language because it has this ability to morph from one root. It just multiplies with unending possibilities, which is why there was a whole movement in the 1960s, 1970s against the taking on of foreign terms in Arabic from foreign languages such as television or telephone or something, because the scholars of, like, for Damascus Arabic language forum, they said we have enough ability in the Arabic language to create the word itself. So hatif is the word that Syrians use for telephone, but other Arab nations will use telephone. A derivation of telephone, because hatif is a voice from the unseen. So a bit slightly scary, but essentially in Arabic you have a word that indicates that. So the richness of the Arabic language, the form that's used in, the sequence of the words themselves are much richer than any other language. And that's not just because the Quran's in it, it's because we have the proof of that in terms of the study of the language, the depth of grammar, morphology, syntax, the study of it, the preservation of the language. Taj al-Arus, actually, the one that I've got, I think it's 42 volumes, and the volumes are, I think each volume is like 700 pages. So you're talking about, like, you can't even have, you won't have an English dictionary that extensive. And that includes history, it includes language, it includes, metaphors, it includes geography, everything that you can think of in that book, which brings richness to the word itself. So if I'm commenting on something, it's not like sitting around and we're saying, what do you think about this verse? And I kind of say, oh, I think this means this, and you say this means that, and then we all go away having different interpretations. It's all grounded in the patterns of the words as they were used initially. So if we're saying kaid, we're talking about the Quranic web of the word, how it's used in a different context, how it has a life of its own, how it was used amongst the Arabs, and then how it's connected to other things. And then if you look at dalal, same thing. How does it appear in the Quran? What's the different? We talked about wujuh al-Quran, the different ways that a word manifests. All that is going to be relevant. Then how they connect. Why is it in a istifham, which is a question? Alam yaj'al kaydahum fi tadlil. So it's a question. What's that? What's the purpose of the question there? What's the purpose of, we talked about the preposition fi, in. He made their plot. How did I translate? I mean, I didn't even translate it because it's an image that you can't understand unless you. I mean, actually, what I did yesterday when we translated it, I actually got. I just got this down because first I'm going to use a translation here, and this is the translation by Shaykh Nuhamin Keller, which is considered to be, I think, probably a watershed in translation of Quran, because he's using a method which he outlines in the introduction, which is actually based upon the classical rhetorical use of words, then transmitted into translation. So do you know that the thing that the image that I'm allowing you to picture in your mind, he's trying to get it into the English, which is different from, I think there's no translation that attempted to do that up until now in the history of English translations. None. which means almost every translation out there is.
What's the translation there?
So this is Sheikh Nuh Hamim Keller's translation. So in his introduction, he outlines the way he's translating it. But my point is that up until now, and this would be a flippant claim, but it's not a flippant claim, no translation in English, apart from probably Muhammad Asad's, has attempted to capture the rhetorical feel and implications of the Arabic and put it into English. And that is a massive disability and shortcoming in translation, meaning you're basically getting, imagine you're getting 10% efficiency in meaning, and you're also reading it through, I've got glasses on, I just kind of wipe them. Imagine you're doing 10% efficiency in meaning, and also you're getting it with glasses that are very misty or dusty. That's what if you're reading in English, you're getting that. And if you learn Arabic, you're still getting, you probably 40% of it. Until you dive into the depth of the Arabic meaning patterns, you're not getting that at all. So this is why, when a reflection show, it always goes, somebody asked me, why are you still in verse number 1 after nine shows? I said, because the meanings are there. I'm not making this up. It's just purely from the Arabic. I've not even like commented on, not gone into a tafsir where you read the tafsir and what they say. It's the Arabic is sufficient to allow you to see like the flower emerging from the seed and growing in front of you. The Arabic itself is sufficient for that. Obviously, in terms of ayat al-ahkam, you look at what scholars say, how they interpret, how they extract meaning. That's a different thing. That's usul al-fiqh. But anyway, this translation, I'll actually read you the whole translation. Actually, then we can start discussion. You talked about language and things. So the title of this is the war elephant. So Surah Fil is not the elephant, it's the war elephant, because that is essentially what it is. The North African now extinct elephant was essentially much larger, and it was much more rugged, and it was much more powerful, and it was basically used for war. And so you have these movies that now they make, and they show the Sassanid Persian Empire. Usually they used war elephants, and they were massive, usually brought from North Africa. And so the war elephant is, so in the title, it's not the elephant. It's not about the beauty of the elephant and how it's made and how it functions and the uniqueness of its the way it works, the way it is physiologically. It's war elephant. We're talking about war here. And it says, the name of Allah, the most merciful and compassionate. Have you not seen how your Lord did with those of the mighty war elephant? So right away, see all the things we've been saying. Did you notice what happened there? Have you not seen how your Lord did with those of the mighty war elephant? How your Lord did. Have you not seen? So that's clear. Reflect, you can say that. But how your Lord did. How your Lord did. Your Lord is doing it, not you. It's miraculous because your Lord is doing it. And what's also important is how, not what, how. With those of the mighty war elephant. Those of the mighty war elephant. In other words, it's not the elephant itself, it's those, which is abrah. It's like a ta'arid, it's like in Arabic, a subtle indication to that. Did he not send their guile completely astray? So he's using this idea of the guile just is like a projectile that just unravels. So it's like this thing that is a guile. Guile is like a complex plot and ploy, and it just unravels. So he's using a metaphor of something just unwinding. Whereas how I was explaining it was kaydahum fi tadlil. So it's like I explained it as this like a what was it I used yesterday? It was I'm trying to think what I used yesterday. It was
it's a fee is within the dalala.
No, but I used a metaphor. So I came up with a metaphor from the top of my head. Not food process. Yeah, the kind of the kind of thing that crushes herbs and I used the example of a nutmeg. You want to make nutmeg powder and you put it into this grinder. So the tadlil is to is basically fi tadlil, is like the story of the the people in the court of Fir'aun, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that he would لَأُصَلِّبَنَّكُمْ فِي جَذْعِ النَّخْلِ, that Allah will crucify you inside the trunks of the palm tree, inside, like it's going to be, you're going to be at one,
So Sheikh,
completely meshed.
what's the meaning of tadlil again?
Tadlil is to unravel. I would say unravel would be to come to naught. There's different ways. Here it's translated as to go astray, and so he's using the imagery of something that's being shot like an arrow and it just goes off.
So fi is connected to tadlil.
Yeah, obviously, because it's like there's two things. One is made into an image which is real. So instead of qaida, I said before, is abstract. It's like an idea plot, you can write it on, but it's still essentially abstract. Tadlil is also an abstract thing, isn't it? The person's off the path is off the path. They might manifest in different ways, but they're essentially doing things and acting in a way that they're off the path. But they're still abstract things. They're not things that are tangible. Tangible is microphone, computer, table, these kind of things, nutmeg, grinder. But the Quran, to make it real, is making it into a tangible image that you can actually picture. If you close your eyes, it's the plot is just being tadlid, is just being unraveled, and it's going through a process of being unraveled. So you have to have an image of something that they have just coming undone, so just falling apart. Imagine you've created something.
But what's fi doing there?
Fi is to create imagery of actual place in
3D.
Like in means what? A place. You have to. I put the petrol in the car.
Okay, so in so you're actually imagining the unraveling as a movie.
Of course, this is why one of my teachers, Shaykh Saqraq, taught us Tafsir Nasafi and other books.
So did he not bring their plan to naught? Yeah.
So naught is, that's like just that's why I'm saying translations in English are, even this one actually doesn't bring that out, that sense of the instantiation, manifestation of it as a physical thing. It does slightly in terms of like an arrow going off, but it doesn't show that thing that I talked about when the story of the court of Fir'aun, when some of his court started to see the truthfulness of Musa, and he threatened them. The Fir'aun threatened them by crucifying them inside the palm tree, inside, and it was going to be so bad that you're going to feel like you're actually one with the palm tree. You couldn't tell the human body from the palm tree. That's proper torture. That's medieval torture in one way. So the imagery comes out of the fi, in. So it's visualizing something that's abstract. This comes up in Arabic a lot. So the purpose of that is to create this ominence and fear of something that's about to come round the corner. And the other thing here is how that happens. How did this unravel? How did this take place? How did the kaid unravel? So that's the thing you have to, for me, that's the thing that you have to say, what was the steps? What was the first thing that led to the unraveling? Because up until then, you can imagine the army making its way up to Mecca, heavy army, slowly getting there. And you have, skirmishes with other Arab tribes, and they're approaching the Kaaba, and they come to actually Ta'if before Mecca, and they essentially get the help of Ta'if. Ta'if was thinking, shall we oppose them because we might have the ability, but we're probably going to lose. They end up supporting Abraha, and they actually send a guide to help them get a more direct, useful pathway to Mecca. They send a person called Abu Rigal. He's almost famous now because it's said that Arab tribes then used to but because he died obviously and buried on the pathway, his grave used to be something that they used to stone because he was considered to be treacherous, because he was treacherous against the Arabs and the Kaaba. But essentially, all of it's going well until a certain point. So the Kaid, where does it unravel? Because if I was to ask you where how does it unravel, what does it unravel? It'd be interesting to see what your perspective is on that, because that's for me a turning, another really interesting thing in the way that we think about what's happening here.
सुनने वालों के लिए ये सूरा फील है, कुरान की 105वीं सूरत, और सूरा फील के साथ सूरा कुरैश जुड़ी हुई है, 106 नंबर सूरा कुरैश। और हमने तकरीबन 9 या 10 सेशंस अब तक जो किए हैं वो है तुमने देखा नहीं। शुरू करता हूँ अल्लाह के नाम से जो नहायत मेहरबान रहम करने वाला है। तुमने देखा नहीं कि तुम्हारे रब ने हाथी वालों के साथ क्या किया। तो हमने बहुत से सेशंस शेख के साथ इस बात पे गुफ्तगू की कि तुमने देखा नहीं का क्या मतलब है, ये किसको कहा गया, उसको किसको सुनाया गया और किसके लिए इसमें असबाक हैं। कुछ मुतरजमीन ने इसका तर्जुमा ए मोहम्मद क्या तुमने देखा नहीं सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम किया है, यानी अल्लाह रब्बुल इज़्ज़त ने हुज़ूर सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम को मुखातिब करके कुरैश को ये सुनाया कि क्या तुमने देखा नहीं, क्या तुम गौर नहीं करते कि तुम्हारे साथ क्या हुआ था, क्या हुई थी तुम्हारे साथ, कितनी बुरी हुई थी। तुम्हें अपना उन अब्रहा वालों का देखा नहीं तो उनका अंजाम क्या किया गया था, कि तुम्हारे रब ने हाथी वालों के साथ क्या किया। और तुम्हारे रब ने हाथी वालों के साथ क्या किया। अभी हम थोड़ी सी एक ब्रेक लेंगे और उस ब्रेक के बाद हम इस पे डिस्कशन करेंगे, ये जो आयत नंबर 2 है, कि वो तदबीर आखिर थी क्या जिसको अल्लाह की ज़ात ने अपने इन नन्हे मुन्ने परिंदों के साथ उस तदबीर को अकारत कर दिया, उसको अनडू कर दिया। वो तदबीर यानी हम अब रेडी हैं उस सीन के लिए कि जिसमें एक बहुत बड़ा लश्कर, हाथी वालों का लश्कर काबे पे चढ़ दौड़ा और फिर उनकी स्कीम जो थी वो पलक झपकते में, चंद ही लम्हों में बिल्कुल सिफर हो गई। छोटी सी एक ब्रेक लेते हैं और दोबारा आपकी खिदमत में हाजिर होते हैं। Reflections program. Just before the break, we were discussing what is it that will be, how it will be unraveled, Sheikh. How? So we are ready now for the scene. What was it? What was going on? And now we are ready to see what got cancelled. Yeah.
Okay.
What
So
got
before the advertisement break, I was about to jump in because you were summarizing in Urdu and you actually preempted the whole discussion by saying, how did it unravel? So what was the point at which it unraveled? You said, and you said, and it happened through the sending of the flocks of birds. So is there essentially you've answered the question that I was kind of asking at the beginning was, or in that session was, what was it that started the unraveling of their march? So you're saying it was the sending of the lashkar.
The birds. Yeah, the lashkar. हाँ, झुंड आ गए, लश्कर आ गए, छोटे छोटे परिंदों के, और उसके पास कंकरियां, और यानी
is that it? Is that the thing? Because who are we talking about? Remember, it's war elephant. It's the Ashab al-Fil. What's their calling card in this event? So what's the big deal about this? It's Ibn Ashur actually mentioned it's the first like real event where elephants appear on a battlefield in a war in the Hijaz. Like is the elephants brought over, imagine, in an ark from over the Red Sea from Ethiopia Okay, so it's brought and it's specifically for that. It's the Ashab al-Fil. It's the people of the elephant. The elephant's the calling card. And it's the thing that's making it different, because 60,000, 100,000, there's many armies on the face of this earth that walked and trounced and demolished and destroyed. But the calling card was the ferocity of something you couldn't, in a battle, you couldn't deal with. Similar to, I mean, not completely similar, but in the Battle of Khandaq, there was something that the companions felt that they could not deal with, which was the cavalry horses attacking the open plains into Madinat al-Nawara. And so that was the reason why in the Battle of Ahzab, when the confederations came and Bani Thaqif and all the Arab tribes and Quraysh came, they came, and there wasn't much that could stop them, because Uhud had taught the companions that they need to remain within the confines of the city to defend it, but they knew that it was almost impossible. So Sayyidina Salman al-Farisi radiyallahu anhu had to come up with his invention or his strategy, which was something unheard of amongst Arabs in warfare, which was to build a trench. And so it became the Battle of the Trench. So Khandaq is not, it's not the Battle of Ahzab as much as the imagery of our image is not the Ahzab, not the confederation of the kind of United Nations of enemies of the Prophet ﷺ. It's the ditch. That's so it's known as the Battle of the Ditch. So this is the war, or one-sided war, of the elephant. And what happens is the elephant comes to what is now between Mina and Muzdalifah, a small valley, and the plot unravels well before anything arrives from the skies. The plot unravels when this elephant, which is called Mahmud, actually they gave it the name Mahmud, which is actually one of the names of the Prophet ﷺ as well, Mahmud. It's moving northwards, and all of a sudden it just crouches down. And so they think, okay, it might be tired, it might be whatever. It's not. It seems to be completely not plausible why it's stopped all of a sudden, but it stops. And then they wait, and then they realize, okay, we need to keep moving. The army needs to move, because we're basically in stone throw of the Haram. You're in the home straight, and so they get the elephant up. It refuses. They hit it. It refuses. They get the elephant whisperer. It refuses to move forward. But it stands, and then they move it westwards, and it moves westwards. So it starts to trek westwards. It's a valley, so it's not far to go. And then they turn it northwards, and it stops, kneels, get it up. It gets up, move it eastwards, it moves eastwards. And they're thinking, okay, now while it's going eastwards, let's move it northwards towards Mecca, stops. So the the power of Abraha, his calling card is I'm the head of an army that's headed physically by a war elephant. The elephant seems to be stopping. It seems to be, for some reason, is there a barrier there? Is it something that's stopping it? Is it there's nothing there. Like, what's the problem? And it takes it south. It starts going south. So obviously it's got a problem with the north. So the unraveling, like psychologically for an army where everything is in its main, like imagine a football team who's a normal football team, 10 players, but it's got this world famous striker. And so everything is riding on the striker, this footballer who's going to score all the goals. And then all of a sudden he's like, he gets EBGBs, or he just goes dysfunctional for some reason. He gets on the pitch, he can't kick a ball. Like, you pass the ball to him, it bounces off his toe and goes the other direction. If he's never played football, like at that point, how's the team going to go out and even attempt to even, because it'll know that if this is happening, it's supernatural, and they're going to do what? Remember, in the back of their mind, they're going to destroy what is claimed to be the temple or the house, which is an indication of God's presence. And with that, for the polytheists as well. Remember, they were Christians, the people of the elephant. But with that is all the idols and all the incantations and the fear of that as well. Oh, if you desecrate, what's going to happen? You'll die a terrible death. So the kaid unravels the moment that they realize that they're not fighting an army. They're not trying to dismantle bricks and mortar of the Kaaba. They're not even attempting to take on the tribal chieftains around Makkah al-Mukarramah who've placed their idols almost as ransoms with the Quraysh. They're fighting against God. And so, أَلَمْ يَجْعَلْ كَيْدَهُمْ فِي تَضْلِيلٍ. The plot, which is a plot internal, hidden, with specific goals and an end, they're plotting, but also إِنَّهُمْ يَكِيدُونَ كَيْدًا وَأَكِيدُ كَيْدًا. They're plotting their plot, and God is also plotting his plot. فَمَهِّلِ الْكَافِرِينَ. Allah says, then leave these people who have rejected for a little while and let them be. Because everything, essentially what's understood between the lines is everything's going to unravel for them. Don't worry. They're plotting. Their plot and plans are nothing compared to the plot and plans of God. It doesn't mean that God plots and plans. In Arabic rhetoric, it's used to create a mirroring effect. God doesn't plot and plan. God wills. So when it says innahum yakiduna kaida, they're plotting what the meaning actually is, and God is willing something far greater. It's not that God is plotting. Na'udhu billah. God has not got a mischievous mind in that way. God is willing. Murid. He is murid. He's the one that wills something into being, but it's created to mirror what they're doing. Okay, they want to plot. Okay, God will plot. Let's just use your words. We'll plot as well. And who's going to win? It's obvious. And the moment that the elephant stops and they beat it and it just becomes useless, it's a piece of, it's actually becomes like a liability actually at that point, because it's sitting in the middle of nowhere. Then the mind, you can imagine, the confidence of all that trekking and the soldiers. Think of the soldiers who are being told we're just going on this mission to just demolish this place of worship, who people have come to for millennia. It's known that it was a place of pilgrimage, and they're basically mercenaries as well. They're probably paid to go. Very few of them have any, as they say, skin in the game in terms of desire to do this. It's Abraha. When that comes psychologically, what are you going to think? In that age where religion and belief was was inherent within people, that they feared the unseen much more than now. People are technological, and they think in terms of technology. Something must have clicked within their minds, which meant even if God hadn't sent the Ababil and the way that they're actually demolished and killed, which is to ensure that they never encroach upon it again, it would have, the conflict would have been finished, because what are they going to do? Are they going to, none of the narrations say they attempted to attack. They stopped. And the reason for the stopping was a deep psychological paralysis, which is a fear, which comes now into their mind from the point of the fact that something is protecting the house. Something is protecting the thing that we're trying to destroy. And at that point, once you decimate the confidence, the morale, it's the same thing in the Battle of Khandaq. The moment that they see that the winds are blowing their pots, and Abu Sufyan says, "I'm out of here," because even the pots we're using to cook our food are not, staying alight. I'm out of here. Psychologically, the nature of demoralized state of the people in the Battle of Ahzab and Khandaq is going to be less, I think, than this, because this is clearly something that's sent from above, and that's how it unravels. That unraveling, that crushing of the plot, the tadlil, which is tadlil actually comes like closely to the way that a thought unravels into a kind of psychosis, or a kind of psychosis in the mind, which makes you unable to do anything, like a mental block.
Fog.
a fog of. We thought this was so easy. We're going to go in, elephant, crash, crunch, break, and everything's done. And remember, even before this, there's an incident I actually totally forgot about, which is the story of, when they're encroaching. On the way there, they take hold of the camels of Abdul Muttalib.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
So you remember Abraha, before they reached, before the elephant, Abraha, shows great respect to Abdul Muttalib. Abdul Muttalib is there. And he obviously, Abraha's thinking, okay, he's the chieftain, he's the head of the Quraysh, he's the most important thing. He's come to negotiate or to surrender. And Abdul Muttalib, the moment Abraha places him in a place of honor next to him and speaks to him, and he thinks this is a leader. Look at the majesty of his being and the way he holds himself. Obviously, the grandfather of Prophet ﷺ. But then when he speaks, he says, "Oh, by the way, I just came to speak to you about the fact that you took 100 camels of mine. I just need them back.
Give them back to me." Yeah.
He just just this thing. So I just wanted to let you know that. And obviously, Abraha then thinks, well, this guy's just interested in his money. This is camels. These Bedouins, okay, we need to destroy the Kaaba, because even their leader is just worried about his money. But then he says it. He says, "We're going to destroy your precinct and the Kaaba, and you're worried about your money." He says, "No, the camel has a lord. I'm responsible for the camels. The house has a lord, and it's responsible for its house." And that's the end of conversation. No philosophy, no extended negotiation. Look, by the way, just let you know, there is a lord for this house, so you just need to usin bitle.
वही करेगा।
उसने
कहा ऊंट मेरे हैं, मैं ऊंटों का मालिक हूँ,
so that's why I'm
मेरे वापस
responsible
करो,
for.
हाँ, मेरे ऊंट वापस
And
करो.
so the moment that happens, Abraha is in a boxing match, when you're supposed to use strategy and slowly wear down the opponent. The worst thing in a boxing match is to go all out and wear yourself down, and then Abraha really gets angry with that and says, okay, game's on. And so in the back of his mind is that, okay, I am going to destroy a building, but they're saying it's protected by a lord. And then when the incident of the elephant happens, that becomes you can imagine his heart beating. Can you imagine, can you see when they come back and say, oh, the elephant that's going to destroy the Kaaba, we should bulldoze it, is refusing, and there's no reason. And we've tried everything. We've given it food. We've struck it. We've threatened it. Nothing's working. We can't carry it there. And then you can imagine, just think about the heartbeat from normal, kind of on a victory dance like the Quraysh did in the Battle of Badr. All of a sudden, the heart's palpitating, and it's almost like you can imagine at a certain point, if your thought runs away with you, the plot which is in his head of complete hegemony over the Arab Peninsula is going to just fall apart. The tadlil is real. The destruction, the waywardness, the lack of success happens, and that cannot take place. If Allah just said, alam yuhlikuhum, if Allah said something did we not destroy them? No, we kaydahum fi tadlil. It's the kayd that's going to get attacked, the plot in the mind. And for me, that's at the moment that what hits home is that it's not being protected by people. It's not people that are protecting, it's God. And that's when the plot, because the plot's always in your mind, isn't it? The plot that you have, unless you write it down, it's essentially something in your mind. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, and I'll do this and this. And you use the excuse of somebody desecrating the Qulais in Sana'a, the cathedral. So all the plotting and planning. And the moment you realize your plot is over-plotted, in other words, unplotted by something else, that's when you realize the thing that you're going to use to get what you want, there's somebody who knows your plot. And your plot is actually it's actually very stupid, because your plot is no plot. You're not plot. It's just, you're just walking towards the Kaaba, and you're essentially going to walk to your death.
So Just thoughts here. Yes, we've appreciated the nuances of language, the layers of understanding of how these words actually are more than just plain text. It's conjuring up pictures, images in your mind, and also you're playing with emotions of a strong army. You've uh, kind of got them. They were dumbfounded. They were like not able to think anymore the way they were thinking before. They were just unable to do anything because everything freezes. Uh, the point of it all. So we have the point of it all for a person who's reading Quran. What am I taking from this? What's the utility of it for me? How am I using this information, these images, this history, the piece of history, the discomfort it caused for Abraha, the and actually another thing that comes to my mind: what was Abdul Muttalib actually thinking when he have this conviction? So was he I don't want to go into that conversation, but okay. So he had the conviction that it will be saved by Allah, and I'm only responsible for my we herd of camels.
So in that sense, I mean that answer for question first, yes, he did. So he knew that Allah would be the one that would save the Kaaba because he's Lord of the Kaaba itself. So that was a conviction he absolutely had, like in his belief in the Kaaba and the Lord of the Kaaba being the one that would protect it. That's an absolute belief. In terms of utility of what it means to us, it comes back to what you.
Sorry. Let's pause here. So, is that a universal rule then now in history that it will always be protected? Because it's a house of Lord.
I mean, there's narrations about the end of time which are different, which are to do with but it's not protected. It's protected when God decrees it to be protected, because there was, even in Islamic history, there was a situation where the black stone was taken out and moved to Bahrain, and it's made a center of pilgrimage and things like that. So there's always destruction and warfare, and even in living memory was in 1979 the attack, and so there's always conflict and there's always that nature. But this is where God promised to protect it. So it's not that it will always be protected, because there will be points in history where there'll be attacks and there'll be destruction. But in a context of a challenge, and where the challenge is given, it will be protected. So it's not as if there's some kind of kind of force field around the Kaaba in that kind of sense of an absolute. It's the fact that it's protected when God said it will be protected, and meaning it will become miraculously protected if God said it would be. So that's the point in this story. That's exactly what the point is. It was brought to naught. The plot to destroy it was brought to naught because the Kaaba had a purpose. Because the same year this happens, the same year the Prophet ﷺ is born, about 50 days, said, according to historians, about 50 days afterwards. In other words, there's the outstanding core aim of the Prophet ﷺ's prophecy, prophethood, which was to re-establish the Hajj and the pilgrimage to the Kaaba in the same form that the Prophet Ibrahim ﷺ had done it. So there was a function to the Kaaba remaining, which was inherently related to the Prophet ﷺ's life, and that culminated, as you know, in the final pilgrimage, the one Hajj the Prophet did, which then was also the end of when the Prophet ﷺ was given Al-Yawma akmaltu lakum dinakum wa atmamtu alaykum ni'mati. On this day we have completed our religion upon you and have finished our blessing upon you, and have been pleased with Islam as your religion. It was for that narrative had to come to its end. So that cycle where the Prophet would enter and do the Hajj and have the keys of the Kaaba given to him was the end of that cycle. So that's the reason why it was protected.
So, getting back to this was a question 2 of, so there was question 1, and that was, so what's the utility of it? How we appreciate the language, we appreciate the depth, the layers, the nuance, the beauty of it, and its relevance.
Yeah, so if I would say to you, what was the relevance of like the story of the flood, like Prophet Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam? I would say to you, what relevance of the story of the prophets Isa I can go through all the prophets actually. I'll just do it. The Prophet Ibrahim and the fire, the Prophet Yusuf and the well, and the Prophet Musa and Fir'aun and the expulsion from Palestine. All these. What's the utility? The same question comes up in all the historical narratives, the parables of the Quran, the historical instances, the coming of the angels to the Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam to give him glad tidings of a son, the story of Zakaria and Maryam and the Prophet Yahya. Essentially, it's a deep question, but it's a very clear question. Why do human beings attach themselves to such individuals like prophets? So that's essentially what the question essentially is that.
Kood pada atishe namrud mein ishq. So the story of Ibrahim is of one of ishq. Kood pada atishe namrud mein ishq.
No, that's a metaphorical one. That's like a Sufi interpretation.
Okay. Is it not?
Yeah, because what is saying there, he's saying that poem is saying that it wasn't the divine protection that was the main character of that story. It was the fact that the Prophet Ibrahim is through his divine love that he was protected. So that's like it's to show that divine love, if you have it, will make you invincible. Yeah. But
the conviction was so, it was such that even the fire would not harm him.
Yeah, but according to Aqidah, it's God that protects him. But you can say through the love he had.
Yeah, through the love.
It's possible. But my point is, why do we infatuate over prophets? Like the stories of prophets and the stories of, because this is still a story of the Prophet ﷺ, because this is a prelude to the Prophet ﷺ coming. So the story of the elephant is not in and of itself significant for any reason, apart from the fact it happens in the year the Prophet ﷺ is born, and the protecting of the Kaaba is a necessary condition of the fulfillment of his prophecy. Like it needs to be there.
The miracles can happen. God can come to your aid, intervention, and what makes you deserving of that intervention?
There's nothing there. I mean, if you say that's what it is, what did the Quraysh do that deserved an intervention? Like what are they?
Mutawallis. They were mutawallis. They were looking after the house
with 100 idols.
And Mashallah. Still, but still,
my point is, everything they were supposed to do, they're doing the opposite: worshipping idols, sacrificing blood sacrifices to idols. They're basically zulm, and the Prophet went into seclusion, lamenting the state of the Quraysh. I mean, the point was, the Prophet went into uzla and khalwa before revelation because the situation was dire: idol worship, female infanticide. The lack of justice within society, that was continual. The Arabs were eloquent, absolutely. Arabs were generous, absolutely, historically known. Even in pre-Islamic times, the Prophet actually underlined all those things. But on your core purpose, like if you used to mark an exam, the handwriting is very nice, but it's all rubbish. Like what you're writing is absolute rubbish, trash. Like it's all untrue. I love the handwriting. That's exactly what the Quraysh were. So they don't deserve the miracle. The miracle is connected to the impending coming of the Prophet. It's setting the scene for the coming of the Prophet. That's what's deserving of the miraculous intervention from the disabling of the elephant. And essentially, like the elephant, their main calling card, isn't it? It's like technology today. Imagine an army which has got all the shock and what they call shock and awe, and it's based on technology. These companies, Plantier and all these,
all the AI tools,
very kind of devious, devilish technology companies. Like, you don't know, we don't have to say they're devilish. Like, they're pretty satanic, occultist movements with the people at the core of them. And then their technology fails at the moment of battle. That's like a miracle. And so the event of Am al-Fil, the year is two events: the birth of the Prophet ﷺ, but prior to that, this event, they're connected. And so this is the whole point is this is going to strike fear. As I said before, remember, this is why I said Alam Tara Kaifa. It's the Prophet being spoken to, but the Quraysh are listening in. And they're listening in knowing that they've been bad boys. They've misbehaved. And that's going to get them, when I'm saying Abraha's heart is palpitating the moment that the elephant stops for no reason. And he's thinking, well, maybe there's some truth here. When the Quraysh are listening to the Prophet being told the story of Am al-Fil, and they know it as well more than the Prophet ﷺ, because some of them saw it literally. Abu Quhafa, for example, saw it. You don't think their hearts are palpitating because they're thinking, where's this going? It seems to be that God protected Mecca, but it seems like we're the people that are like Abrahana. We're playing the role of Abraha. And that's the hearts palpitating. That's why in early...
So the intervention is there, but intervention as perceived is not for Quraysh. It is for something else. So the plot was dismantled by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the birds. The intervention happened. But intervention is not because Quraysh deserved it.
Yeah, they didn't deserve it.
Yeah. So, but it's
they have to come on. But they have to come on side. Like, they're part of the characters in the scene. They're not the main character. Like, they're part of the play.
So something else is going to happen.
Yeah,
so
you have to, like,
preparation.
Yeah. So the Quran essentially is saying you need to get into character. You need to fall in line. You have to come on side because something's about to happen here, which is sending of a prophet. And if you want honor, if you want God to preserve the honor of being custodians and the neighbors of the Kaaba, you better check yourself before you wreck yourself, as they say.
And Shaykh, is it not also the thing that it is to validate that there is wahi?
Yeah, I mean, that's always the case in Revelation. The revelation validates wahi because it comes, I mean, people question it then. The fact that what is revealed and prophesied comes to be and happen is a validation of revelation, the process of revelation. Because they question the revelation of the Prophet ﷺ. And the way that it was shown to be true is that it kept coming true. So this is a validation of that as well, because they plotted and God unraveled their plot. And so the tadlil, essentially, I mean, that's why I'm saying the purpose of it is to understand what is the sending of, essentially at the core of it is the sending of prophet. All the stories, this story is part of the story of the Prophet ﷺ. And then therefore it's the same as every other story of prophets. Why do people feel themselves attached and connected and pulled towards prophets? It's for a very simple reason. Because they see in prophets, as Shawal al-Dahlawi mentioned in his Hujjatul al-Baligha, that they see in prophets the connection to the divine realm, to the angelic realm, to the unseen, which they desire as well because it pulls them in. It's something that is, something that people desire, guidance, they desire goodness. And when they see the prophet, they see that connection with the angelic, the prophetic, the godly. And that's why they get pulled towards following them. And so this story is essentially showing how God protected and preserved the environment within which the Prophet would be born. Because imagine it was destroyed. That means the Prophet was born in a society that's been enslaved. Essentially, that's what it means. Like, if you want to come back to essentially what this means, it comes back to the story of Bilqis. What she says, or it said in the Quran, إِنَّ مَلُوكِ إِذَا دَخَلُوا قَرِيةً أَفْسَدُوهَا وَجَعَلُوا عِزَّةَ أَهْلِهَا أَذِلَّةً وَكَذَلِكَ يَفْعَلُونَ. It's either the words of Bilqis or it's the words of Allah saying what happens when the kings and armies of rulers enter into any habitation or city. أفسدوها. They demolished and decimated. In other words, when Abraha entered Mecca, he would have demolished the Kaaba is one thing. He would have enslaved every single person within the vicinity. Okay. And وَجَعَلُوا عِزَّةَ أَهْلِهَا أَذِلَّةً, and would have made the people that had honor the most lowly and meek. Because when an army goes in, it goes for the rulers, doesn't it? Like, why did, when Trump went in, or the American army went into Venezuela, who did they go? Who did they get? They didn't go for the population, the poor cobbler, or the street cleaner. They went for the president. Yeah. And so when armies go in, they humiliate the most honored people there, the best families, and that's because that's the enemy. That's the people that stand in their way. And so for that's the Quraysh, that's all the leaders, Ubay ibn Khalaf, all these people that were, at the higher level of it, they will make them into slaves, actually, essentially. And so if this happened and it took place and it would have been successful for Abraha, the Prophet would have been born essentially into slavehood. So he would have been born, and his mother would have been taken, and he would have been born in slavehood, enslaved himself. And so you cannot disconnect it from the protection and the tone of all that revelation at that time of this chapter, which is, Surah Duha, Surah Inshirah, Wattini wa Zaytun, all these chapters, La uqsimu bihad al-balad. These are all pointing to the fact that, look, God has got your back. Essentially, if you want to paraphrase it.
Final few moments, and that brings me again to all these surahs you've mentioned, Shaykh. They are just saying, Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina wa Maulana Muhammad. Surah Balad, Surah Duha. Even I never thought Surah Fil is of that family, but it is. I never, what Duha is poetic. Every poet has used what Duha. Every poet has used La uqsimu bihad al-balad for some form of poetry. But I haven't seen actually Surah Fil being used for poetry of praising Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Sure, I mean, Iqbal must have intimated towards that. I'm sure. I mean, you're the expert, Iqbal, but I'm
not expert. But inshallah, I'll look into that.
I know an expert. I'll ask an expert. I know somebody from America that's an expert.
Yeah, Surah Quraysh. I need to find a connection of people who've written Naats and the connection of Surah Quraysh with. But yes, so Surah Quraysh and connections with Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam as As-salatu wassalamu alayka ya Rasulallah. There is a visible connection here, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. It's as I said, it's the preservation of the city, which is going to be then the recipient of the birth, and it actually ties in with Abdul Muttalib, who was the one that asked for the camels instead of protection, because he knew that the Lord of the house would protect it. When the Prophet ﷺ is born, he's the one that takes the Prophet ﷺ and he places him towards the Kaaba, raises him high above his head and prays to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect him. He's the one that instills the name Muhammad upon the Prophet ﷺ, even though it was inspired to his mother Amina radiyallahu anha. And so the cycle of the chapter actually continues when, at the point, if you were to make a short movie of this, it would not finish until you had Abdul Muttalib with the Prophet ﷺ raising a small child in his hand, because you could lift a child in your hand and say, "Oh Allah, I place this child in your service." Allah. And so then so why is it not Surah Fil? Why is it not about the Prophet ﷺ? I mean, I'm just like surprised how you could not say, like, the end of it is not the flesh of Abraha falling off his bones in Sana'a, which is what happens, which we'll see later on. It's the placing of the Prophet ﷺ at the service of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then the whole story of Abdul Muttalib with the Prophet ﷺ sitting next to him in the Kaaba, in front of the Kaaba, when all the other Arab tribal leaders used to say, how is this child even allowed on this sarir, on this kind of couch, when only the oldest, wisest people sit on it. And he used to say, this child of mine has an amazing future. So this is it. I mean, the destruction of the elephants was for a divine purpose, and it just shows that protection.
ابرہا کے ہاتھیوں کے لشکر کو خدائے رب ذوالجلال نے تباہ و برباد کیا. جو آج سمجھ میں آیا وہ یہ، کیونکہ اللہ کے نبی صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم کی بعثت کو ہونا تھا، انہیں تشریف لانا تھا، اور انہوں نے رہتی دنیا کے لیے ہدایت کا سرچشمہ بننا تھا. اللہم صلی علی محمد وعلی آل محمد وبارک وسلم. شیخ بہت شکریہ، انشاءاللہ کل دوبارہ حاضر ہوں گے. السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ.